Good morning, friends and traders. Welcome to the Market Forecast. I am Dan Hodgman. It is Thursday, August 27th. This month is winding to a close, not too far off, only a few more days. But hey, we have a lot of numbers coming in this morning. Jobless claims, little worse than expected, but better than last week. 1.006 million. GDP, a little bit better than expected as well. They were expecting negative 32.9%. Just an awful number there. But they got negative 31.7%. Another awful number. But still, lots more coming. We are about 10 minutes away from Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole. So I've got that stuff up right now. So if I see anything come across, I'll make sure to try and catch my eye on that one. And then also, something else to keep in mind, we want to keep everyone in our thoughts that are in the path of Hurricane Laura. It made landfall last night in Louisiana. So if any of you guys are down there, have friends or family, or really anyone down there, we're thinking about you guys, and we wish you all the best. As you can see, I'm Dan Hodgman. John's not here today. It's his day off. So good morning, Charles, MMS Capital, Tanya, Kevin, Scott, Rob, Clarence, John, Subconscious, Troy, Michael, Alan, and Sarah. Good morning to all of you. I'm excited for today. I really am. We saw some really fun moves yesterday. It's interesting. I'm looking at a couple of these equity markets, and I sit down, and it usually takes me a couple hours to really look and get an idea of some of these prices up above. And I had a couple different levels in in both of these markets that have been surpassed. So today is a day that I'm going to end up having to take more time focusing on prep than I'm actually going to be able to trade, because I'm really kind of unsure. We're almost in this uncharted territory. It's pretty wild, and it's a lot of fun to be trading there. So something I'll be paying attention to, spending a lot of time today. And if you guys are ever in that situation where you're just a little bit not 100%, take the time away, step back, put in that prep time. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind that I'm going to miss a little bit of trade here today, and we're going to still take a look at this stuff, and I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing up there. But it's pretty crazy seeing these markets really extend the way they have. We are in a trend up. Are we in overbought conditions? You saw that coach's playbook earlier this week. We talked about divergences. Are we seeing any of that yet? We'll take a look. So before I get too off topic here, why don't we go ahead and take a look at these charts and just go from there. All right. So as always, I was going to start with the daily and crude. And my daily crude chart is just, we got 6 days. Really thrilling stuff here. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that chart. But just when I look at it from a daily perspective, something to keep in mind. We have just slightly. Weekly kickoff high up here at 43.60 or 43.40, excuse me. I was in the right spot. And our weekly kickoff low down here at 41.60. All right, so this is what we're seeing on my daily. I don't know what's going on there. Let's just go ahead and dive right into the 30-minute chart here. First and foremost, settlement price yesterday, 43.39. Remember, weekly kickoff high, 43.40. Yes, this market checked above it yesterday, and we talked about it. We said, look, we totally understand this market is checking up here, but we have really started to work our way back down. I'm going to continue to use this 43.40 as this high side to my channel for multiple different reasons. It's kind of smack dab between the two points of control from yesterday and the prior day. So we know there's high volume in this area. It has shown quite a bit of resistance. This market really hasn't truly accepted up above. I look at a 4-hour chart a lot of times for acceptance, and we didn't trade more than maybe one bar up above this 43.40 price point. And so that tells me that we're really have not truly accepted up above this. So this is still going to be a pivotal spot for me if the market comes up here. Now, if it turns around, the one place I'm looking, it's going back to those prices we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, 42.60. Just because it's a little far off right now doesn't mean it can't fall right back down to it. If you guys do recall, that was such a pivotal area last week. We talked about it quite a few times. Great opportunity down here at 42.60. So that's kind of this range I'm looking at right now, and I'm going to try and stick within that. So that's what we got here on the crude. Let's look at the S&P 500. This thing really is just off to the races. And one of the divergence things that we talked about the other day was we want to see volume continue to maintain. Good, strong volume means it's good, strong auction, and it's maintaining good volume thus far on this last big push we have seen here lately. Now, remember, weekly kickoff high, 34.30. Blew through that. We had that weekly kickoff low down here at 32.90. So nice range there. Weekly kickoff low or high of that 43.30. That's going to be a point to pay attention to if this market starts to come around. Looking a little bit closer, what do we have going on? So we have settlement price up here at 34.80 and a quarter. Now, we had GDP, we had jobless claims. Markets so far is staying relatively quiet. We are in a pretty pivotal spot right now. 34.80 and a quarter. That's our settlement price. You guys know me. This is when I start to look for opportunities, right? This is what I love, looking for an opportunity as the market approaches a settlement price. I'm more hesitant right now to make any sort of execution strictly because Jerome Powell is speaking right now at this virtual Jackson Hole situation. So his words can have a big effect on this, but typically looking at how the market has reacted coming up here, probability says if it comes up here, obviously there's a lot more going on, but my probability says you can take a really cheap short here and maybe look to make 8 to 10 points out of that move to the downside. Just looking at it right now, but obviously I'm not doing anything. Market's still 22 minutes from opening. Jerome Powell is speaking. There's too much to happen to even think about executing a trade here. Anyhow, couple things I'm looking at. Like I said, to the upside, we're maintaining a trend. Our job is to just continue to watch momentum. If we see momentum start to give up, if it starts to come back on us, those are our exit points. So as we maintain these trends to the upside, we are looking for weakness to go ahead and get in on this market. Now, let's wait and see how this thing opens. If it makes that attempt to get to settlement price and move through, then, hey, we're probably going to maintain some sort of trend. If not, we may start to see this thing look lower, and a couple places it can go. Well, the first place I have as a low right now is this 34.70. I'm really going to be paying attention to it. If we get below that, for sure, you can definitely start to pay attention to prior value areas. But I was looking even lower than that. This 34.45, which JD and I were talking about, I've talked about on Tuesday. JD and I talked about yesterday in the market recap. Lots of action at that price, 34.45. So that's a price I would definitely pay attention to if this thing starts to turn around. Next, let's go ahead and look at the NASDAQ, which, just like S&P's, really continues to surprise us. And what's amazing is we're continuing to see more and more volume come in, right? We started to see it kind of show a little bit of decrease in volume. Maybe we were starting to plateau. Volume's coming right back up right now. So we're seeing healthy auction, right? Good volume to the upside, signs of a healthy auction. This thing continues to go. All right, so Jerome Powell right now is just talking about some of the Fed funds. Fed funds likely to be constrained, so just a couple things to think about here. We'll have to digest that a little bit more. All right, NASDAQ settlement price all the way up here, 11,991 and a quarter. Man, 11,991 and a quarter. Last week I was looking at it, and I said I love 11,650 as what I thought was a relatively far off target at the time. Talk about naive. So now I will say 11,650 is still not out of an area I'd look at if this thing starts to turn around. But to the upside, first thing we're looking at, we have to determine if we can really accept above settlement price. Will this thing make that move, break through settlement price, make that new high, and continue on our trend? If that's the case, the direction, or when we're looking for profit targets, we are going with momentum. We're waiting for that market to slow up just slightly. Those are kind of areas that we have to start to look out. So we're looking for weakness to enter into the long side. That's how we're taking advantage of all these moves. That's the only way to really get in on these trends, is find the weakness. Obviously, if we're in a downtrend, we're trying to find that strength right now. But okay, so we're looking for that weakness. That's our opportunity to go ahead and execute within this market condition. We find those weaknesses. Those weaknesses, we want to find them as close to that point of invalidation, especially when it's pretty tough, when we're entering into these uncharted territories. This market's going to have a hard time just getting through 12,000. So if we're looking to enter into the long side here, keeping our risk extremely tight is going to help us be profitable in this current environment. All right, let's look at the gold. Gold has started to kind of fall within a little bit of a range. We're actually kind of on this high side of the range right now. I think we can see it a little bit better on the 30-minute, but just what I was looking at, 1960 down to about 1935 has really kind of defined this range over the last few days for us, and are some interesting areas to keep an eye on. So right now we're actually in a pivotal spot, in my opinion. Yes, we have weekly kickoff high up here at 2006. But I do think we are right now in a very pivotal location. So let's look a little bit closer, because not only are we approaching that high side of this range I was talking about, we're right at yesterday's value area high. So we traded all night, basically right off of point of control and settlement price. Settlement price was 1952.60. So this market right now is kind of approaching that 1960 that we were just talking about a second ago. I said, look, that's kind of this area of opportunity I was going to be looking for. It's been a high side of a range for the last week approximately. We have seen multiple opportunities to take advantage of a great short at this 1960. So right now we are having good momentum. We're seeing good volume coming in right now. I'd have to start looking at some of the order flow and paying a little bit more attention to see if this is an opportunity for execution. Now, if I were to execute, I am looking for a big move to the downside. Every time we've come up here and checked this price, we're seeing big breaks to the downside. That's exactly what I'd be looking for right now. Man, this thing's just keeping going. All right, so momentum is telling us this thing's moving to the upside. So it obviously has to do with Jerome Powell right now. He says Fed has less scope to support the economy. So sitting back, being patient, we may see these. Maybe we see these equities start to turn around. Who knows? All right, let's look at the currencies here. Sorry, a little distracted by trying to see what Jerome Powell's got going on here. Dollar index is down, so these things obviously should be popping right now. Also makes sense why gold is popping. First off, weekly kickoff high here in the euro is 118.93 with the low down at 117.06. So market's relatively approaching that weekly kickoff high. We're still a few points away, but if the dollar continues to get hit, all right, now Jerome's talking about inflation rates and how he's going to react, saying he would not hesitate to act if the pressure builds on inflation. Okay, so when we look a little bit closer here, settlement price 118.19. So this market was making a great consolidation, right? And we kind of started to break out, and now we're seeing massive directional move to the upside. Not too far off from right now, weekly kickoff high. That's kind of that target. 118.93 is where I'm going to be looking. Obviously, I kind of was determined to be looking at this market within a little bit of a range. I was looking at this high of 118.43. that's going to be kind of a low if this thing turns around for me, right? So that's kind of an area I'll keep an eye on as a low. Obviously, things have changed since I first sat down. So now we're just looking for areas that we can look back and find some reaction to. So we do have this swing high up here. Swing high, swing lows. You guys saw that on a coach's playbook a few weeks ago. They're very useful. They help kind of guide us when this market goes in direction. So right now I'm looking at 93. If I'm going to get up there, I can't get in now. I got to find that weakness in this market first to get in on this directional move. But this thing really is rocketing to the upside. Dollar is getting hit, I believe, pretty good. I'm pulling up a dollar chart right now. Yeah, so it looks like the dollar's taking a little bit of a hit right now. So obviously, keep paying attention to what Jerome Powell has to say right now. Next, let's go ahead and look at the yen. So the first thing I said, when we look a little bit closer here, we'll talk about it. Let's just dive in. The first thing I have written down prior to Jerome Powell speaking was settlement price of 94.34, is kind of a high area that I'm going to pay attention to. I was kind of defining my range a little bit. I really like settlement price as my high. We have now started to come into some higher volume areas that are worth paying attention to. Absolutely. So now we're coming up into some consolidation up here, back towards some former points of control, right at them. So this is what we have to start looking for. If this thing continues, gosh, this is a massive, massive move. I wish I could hear what Jerome was saying right now. Massive move to the upside. Again, at this point, we're just looking for weakness to get in and try and take advantage of some of this move. Beyond that, it's really tough to say. Trend was technically straight to the downside as we look on this 30-minute chart here. I was even going to draw up some lines to kind of get an idea of this nice trend that we're maintaining to the downside. That kind of keeps going all the way back here. But obviously we have fought against that. So I think at this point I'm going to step aside, let Jerome Powell speak, and we'll be back at it this afternoon. All right, let's just take a look here. Tanya, if NQ breaks out to the top of this channel, wow, absolutely. Obviously, things are maybe saying otherwise. They're still pretty quiet. Stocks are staying relatively quiet right now. They're moving. They are moving, though. So this will be really interesting to see if they can actually start to go, or if they turn completely around. Yeah, Alan, absolutely starting to make some moves. Ted, good to see you. Keith, good morning. Alan, absolutely. Dan, what source of financial news or announcement do you like using? Good question. I use a lot of different things, obviously. I mean, Twitter, I think, is a great one if you can build out a nice Twitter deck. So I find that's the fastest information I get. CNBC is a great source. I won't argue them. I think they're a great source, so I do watch CNBC quite regularly. Market Watch is pretty good. I have a lot of different apps on my phone strictly for notifications. If I'm busy doing stuff, getting those notifications are really helpful. So I have tons of different apps. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. I want to see what Jerome Powell has to say. We got markets opening up in about 10 minutes. I want to be prepared to trade this open. I assume you guys do too. So I'm going to step aside. I'll see you back here this afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Time for the market recap. Until then, stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll see you guys in the markets. Take care.